Hi everyone, thank you so much for joining me today. So today I'm going to share with you a card that I've made using this stamp set from Alina Crafts. It's a lovely floral stamp set and it has all the outline dies there as well. And I particularly liked that some of the smaller stamps had also got corresponding dies. So you can use all those little foliage elements and you'll be able to easily cut them out. So first of all, I'm just going to ink these up and I'm using a Wow Embossing ink pad. And my plan is to avoid colouring today and just heat emboss in gold. So I'm just going to stamp those all out on a piece of white cardstock. The card that I'm using is 300 GSM and it's Craft UK smooth cardstock. And I'm using my All in Create acrylic block to stamp these stamps. So I'm just going to literally fill a few sheets of paper with different stamps. And then once I've done that, I'm going to coat them in Wow Superfine Rich Gold Embossing Powder. And as you'll see in a minute, I hadn't used my anti-static powder bag because I was just using sheets of cardstock. But where I did get my sticky fingers, you can see that some of the embossing powders stuck. So it's easy to remedy that. I'm just using a paintbrush to just get some of those bits off and tap off the excess. It doesn't really matter because obviously we're going to die cut these out. So anything that does stick to the card outside of the image is not going to be seen once we're finished. So I'm just going to heat my heat tool up now and make sure it's hot enough before I start trying to melt the embossing powder. It's quite important to make sure it's got warm enough because you don't want it to blow the powder off. And also the longer you've got the heat tool on the cardstock, the more you're likely to get warping. So it's really important that the heat tool's heated up before you start trying to melt the powder. So I've just sped this little bit up so you can see it, but you know that the powder's melted once you get that lovely shine. And again, we're not too worried about warping here because obviously we're going to be die cutting all these pieces out. So next I'm going to bring in my big shot and I'm going to take out the coordinating dies that go with these stamps. Now as you can see, they're all connected. This is how they come on the sheet. And it's really easy to just break them apart. So all you've got to do is just twist them and they, as you can see, they really easily come apart. And obviously you'll still have some of the little bits sticking out and you can just use a pair of pliers or wire cutters or even use scissors if you're careful to just remove any excess metal from the edges. But as you can see, they're really easy to line up on the stamps. And I was really impressed with how they cut. They cut like butter and the images came out really lovely and crisp and lined up. So they're really easy to use. I'm not always very good at lining the dies up, but I did find that these were great. So I'm just going to run all the different sheets through my machine and get all those pieces cut out. And then we'll have all the elements that we need in order to be able to create our card today. So next, I'm going to bring in this cover plate die that's also from Alina Crafts. And we're going to use this to create an embossed background. So I've got my rubber mat and this silicone mat that goes with it. And all you need to emboss on the big shot is the base plate, one cutting plate, and then you're going to place the die down and lie the cardstock over the top of it. Then you place your rubber mat and your silicone mat over the top. And I'm just going to run that through the die cutting machine once. It's important that you just do it once so that it doesn't shift. But then you get this really gorgeous embossed pattern. And it's a really great way of using your dies in a slightly different way. So rather than die cutting the panel, we've got this lovely embossed piece. So I've trimmed it down to size and I'm really happy with the level of texture that I've got on that. Next, I'm using the Thank You Sentiment die that was from Alina Crafts. And I'm just coating it again in the same Wow Superfine Rich Gold Embossing Powder. And I've got a little cork mat that I got from IKEA. And I'm just holding it down with some tweezers and heating that up to melt the embossing powder. And then I'm just going to attach that to the shadow outline. I find this cork mat great. It protects my desk. It's a great way of being able to pin your die cuts down while you heat emboss them without worrying about damaging or ruining your desk in the process. So I've got all my elements here I had kind of lined them up on my card panel, roughly where I wanted them to go. And now I'm just going to glue them all down, and I'm using the Nuvo Deluxe glue. I find this is a really great quick grab glue, and I'm just going to use that also with a little bit of foam tape on a couple of the other pieces. And again, I'm just going to add a little bit of glue to the back of the foam tape so that I've got a little bit of wiggle room while I'm gluing these pieces down. And this is a really great way of creating a really pretty card without having to spend hours and hours colouring, but still being able to use those beautiful floral stamps. And then I'm just going to place the sentiment die on some foam pads. Again, add a little bit of liquid glue just so that I've got a little bit of wiggle room. And then we're going to line that up on the bottom of the card. And I was really happy with how this was looking. I decided to add some of the water drops that again are from Alina Crafts. And I'm just going to glue those down. You really don't need much glue with these. And remember that the glue will dry clear. So although it looks cloudy initially, once it's dry, you won't see that. And they just add a really nice finishing touch to the card. Next, I'm going to mat this onto a piece of gold cardstock. I'm just going to, again, add some of the Nuvo Deluxe glue to the back of that, and I'm just going to adhere that down. I always find when using metallic cardstock, if you can use as little glue as possible, then you don't get any seepage out of the sides, so you don't get any marks on the metallic cardstock that you really don't want to show through. So I'm just going to line that up just to give it a thin border around the edge. And then once that's stuck in place, I'm going to get my Tim Holtz paper trimmer, and I'm just going to trim that down to size. The card front actually measured 4 1/4 by 5 1/2, so I made a custom card blank that was just slightly bigger than that, so it had a very thin white border around the edge. And I'm just going to attach it down using some Floral glue, which I have in a fine tip bottle. And there we go, there's the finished card. So thank you so much for joining me today. I really hope that you enjoyed this video. I hope that it gave you some inspiration, and I hope that you really enjoyed seeing some of the products from Alina Crafts. I'll link as many products as I can in the description box below. And please don't forget to like, subscribe and leave a comment if you've enjoyed this video. Thank you so much. Take care.